Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running and nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, how you doing? Welcome into the program. Today on the show, we have none other than Derakhshani joining us a bit late, but we are all, nonetheless excited to have him. And yeah, it's going to be a great show where we talk about everything CGI, computer graphics, everything like that. Hello to everyone out there in the chat room, listening to us on the radio, and of course, all those who listen to us on the podcast. How you doing? So with that being said, before we get started with Dariush, first things first, computeramerica.com, check that out. And I want to make that especially clear because just last night, after dinner, for obvious reasons, we put up our most recent review of the Impossible Burger. It's something that we've talked about on the show before, the meat substitute, all plant-based burger. And yeah, we finally went out and bought them ourselves. We are beholden to no one. It was not brought to you by Impossible Burger or anything like that. It's our honest opinion, and yeah, it was a lot of fun to cook, a lot of fun to do. And if you were ever curious about what the faux meat burger is like, hey, give that a read. You can check that out, of course, at computeramerica.com, and also the video portion, all that good stuff. Everyone, check that out. Okay, and with that being said, once again, thank you for joining us, and why don't we go ahead, bring our guest on, and just get things started. So, everyone, once again, joining us is none other than Derakhshani. More than happy that he could be joining us. And let's see, bring up the volume. All right, so just 1 second, folks. I apologize. Just 1 second. Let's see. Hopefully that worked just a little bit. And let's see. It's true. Okay. All right. Yeah. Hopefully that was a little bit better. Yeah. Sorry about that, folks. Just setting up the levels. That should have been good. So everyone, hey, let's go ahead, bring on our guest. And okay, so he's been with us before, regular Computer America correspondent, and Dariush, how you doing? Welcome back onto Computer America.
I'm good. Thanks for having me. As always, it's a pleasure to be on.
Yep. No, our pleasure. So yeah, with that being said, before we get started, how you going? Or I'm sorry, how are you doing? Is everything going well?
Yeah, good. Wrapping up some semesters at school and getting ready for some projects over the summer. But yeah, things are moving along quite nicely. Hope you're well.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. Yeah, just doing the show, have some great interviews coming up. You may be interested that tomorrow we've set it all up to play, but we just did an interview with, because of the time difference, he's in the UK, but it was a really fun, almost hour-long interview about facial recognition. He's an expert in law, and yeah, he's the one kind of going over recent court cases and looking into the use of facial recognition in terms of law enforcement and what's legal, what should be legal. It was a very interesting conversation. So, hey, just doing the show and having a good time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, that's pretty cool. We've kind of loosely discussed CG humans and how the technology is sort of moving ahead with how we're able to replicate other people. And at some point soon, it's going to be really hard to tell what's real and what's not.
Well,
So
and even
that's interesting with facial recognition.
yeah, no, and even to that point, something that came up during our discussion was an article a couple of days ago. I'm not going to throw it up on screen or anything like that, but what happened was law enforcement were essentially, and I'm sure you've seen television about when you get like a suspect, based on someone's characteristics, and they'll be like, oh, hey, he looked like XYZ. They do a SketchUp. Well, law enforcement has started taking photos of people, in one case, Woody Harrelson, of all people, and they alter it with Photoshop and, try to, make the nose more narrow. They change the eye color. They do XYZ. Anyways, they take real photos, alter them digitally, and then try to get a hit with facial recognition systems.
It's interesting. Yeah, I wonder how easily you can sort of Photoshop disguise yourself.
Well, it's and really, I wasn't really sure how I felt about it because facial recognition already has problems with false positives. Imagine if you're Woody Harrelson and you get pulled over and it's like, oh, we thought you were someone else, because we used your photo to catch the guy.
Right.
I don't know, just photoshopping people's faces to catch other people. I don't know how legally that discussion with our guest. I don't know legally if that's okay to do because I know that he's an actor, but what about other people if they're just random photos? Interesting. Anyways, that's not exactly what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about graphics and things like that. For those of us who are joining us maybe for the first time with you, why don't you go ahead and give us a bit of your background and your interest in CGI, 3D, all that good stuff.
Oh, sure. I teach computer graphics and I do work in computer graphics. I've been doing it for a long time, and I love building machines and getting the most out of them. So, yeah, I've spent a minute or two in dabbling in this sort of thing in the past. So yeah, it's nice to kind of come on and talk about some of the topics that are going on and some of the things that people face when they're building themselves, a workstation, quote unquote, and what that exactly means.
And if it just so happens to run computers or video games very well, then all the better.
All the better. Yeah.
Absolutely. And by the way, just to kind of hype up other things that we're doing on the show here, did you ever play Classic WoW? The World of Warcraft that came out 14 years ago?
No, you know what? I never got into massively online games like World of Warcraft. The closest I've been has been StarCraft, which is more like a
of course
5v5 sort of thing.
Real-time strategy. Yeah.
Rainbow Six now.
Yeah, of course, Rainbow Six, and StarCraft, which really, in a lot of ways, helped influence Warcraft as well. But we got into the beta for the WoW Classic, which is going to be relaunching here soon. I had a friend ask me, he's like, "Do I need to buy a whole new computer for this?" And for everyone out there who's kind of wondering, it's a 14-year-old game that they are re-releasing, and they did upgrade the graphics because they know that resolution is no longer 640 by 480 or whatever it was back then.
Right.
But the graphics are not intense at all. So, I found that an interesting question that people are like, well, this new game, do I need to buy a new computer for it? And it's like, not at all. It's
no, yeah. But if you're wondering if you should buy a new computer, you might want to buy a new computer.
Well, we've been friends for a long time, like ever since like freshman of high school. He's always one of those guys that's like, he'll like whenever a new game comes out, he buys the cheapest computer that will run the game. And then when the next game comes out or the next expansion or 2 years goes by, he's like, oh, I need to buy another computer. I need to buy he's always in the market for another computer because he refuses to spend probably more than $300. That's just his way. I don't agree with it,
For a computer?
For a computer. About $300 is about, and for a laptop on top of that is about the most
you mean
spend.
To upgrade or like a whole new thing?
Computer. A whole new computer.
Wow, you can get a computer for $300 that can play a game?
Not really. It's it's at the bare minimum, but we've we've certainly gone over our highlight. By the way, anyone who's interested in that topic, it's some of our stories around the holidays. We went over building a computer and things like that. So definitely check out some of our past shows. But I will say, let's go ahead and get into today's topics. You sent over a nice big list of them, and we may throw some surprises in there. But how about this? Our first article from ZDNet, as our Canadian friends are so likely to say. ZDNet, and this is about AMD getting ready to make a big mistake. And I have one other article after this about AMD, but I have not heard about AMD making any big mistakes. What is this?
No. Well, this is in regard to the fact that Threadripper, their really high core count CPU, seems to be missing from their roadmap. It doesn't mean that it's not coming out, and this is kind of a speculation article. But they were curious about why Threadripper, their 32 core chip, is sort of not being listed in the roadmap. It's kind of omitted, and they're kind of curious as to why that is. And we've spoken about this a number of times, where not a whole host of applications support that many processors, and it's really very helpful for workstations when you're rendering and you're running professional applications that are meant to go on lots and lots of cores. But even for a lot of the stuff that I use, I ping maybe one core. So when I get into rendering and stuff like that, that's when all the cores really come in. But it seems like it's still a high frequency CPU that is the winner all around still right now, until these applications catch up and are able to multi-thread their processes. So I don't know, is AMD planning on going the frequency route and figure something out there? Or what? And I think that's the crux of this article.
It's interesting that we're still having this conversation, because this was what led AMD and Intel down different paths almost 10 years ago, where AMD was going for thread count and in that kind of way, and Intel said, people don't need more than 4 cores, or in some cases 8 cores was really their maximum, and they went with frequency. Intel really pulled ahead for a while there, and like we've said, AMD was not competitive until about until they released Threadripper and the Ryzen processor, and then like this 32 thread 32 core processor came out. Everyone's like, wow, AMD's really punching above their weight class now. They're really doing something that's even more innovative than Intel's doing with some of their chips. And now we're having, I guess, kind of the waffling thing. You mentioned that for processing, or for rendering, what other fields do you really think that Threadripper or any of these other high-end processors, because we're talking in the article here, $1,700, $2,000 for the Intel version of which is the closest one. What other markets do you think really didn't adopt it as fast, maybe, and that's why they're kind of shifting away? What other markets were really, kind of poised to take advantage of this and would be hurt by them pulling, the higher core processors out?
Yeah, I think it's mainly graphics, science, visualization, high-end computing, AI computing, things like that.
Ironically, AI, and I'm sorry to step on you just like that already, but ironically, that's where a lot of the hardware and a lot of the excitement is right now, is AI computing and supercomputers.
Right. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to own a Tesla, and I was just driving home with autopilot for some of the way, and it's really staggering the technology. And it occurs to me, it's 2019, and not all cars have this, and it kind of questions why not, because this is it's not just the cutting edge. We're a little bit behind the cutting edge at this point. This should be regular edge. technology, because certainly the silicon, the hardware, the software is out there. It's a matter of getting them used. And if you think about how brains work, we don't work high frequency single lane. We work many parallel lines, different parts of the brain doing different things for the body. So that's sort of how this car is built in some ways, where the neural network, as they call it, it's sort of a self-learning sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I notice that it gets better every time that I use autopilot. So something has to be said for that AI sort of computing, where you let a computer learn as it's going. Hopefully not to the point where we get Skynet and we're in Armageddon and Terminator land. But there's something to be said for that. And I think having multiple lower frequency cores or lower power cores is important in that way. For games, I think this is where they need to really make the bigger mark. And that's more on the software, on the development side of things, than it is on the hardware.
And of course, it's again the chicken and egg. Why would developers spend the resources, the time, the energy, the effort to make a game run really, really well on 4, 8, let alone 16, 32 cores?
It is crystal clear that's the future of computing in a lot of ways, because the bandwidth ceiling is being hit, or I should say the frequency ceiling is being hit. They're having a really hard time getting up consistently above 5 gigahertz. Yeah. And that has been sort of the death bell of Moore's Law, which is kind of upsetting. They really need to think of new paradigms, and they're trying to shrink the dies and get smaller and smaller and smaller. And aside from quantum computing, there's no real evolution on the horizon yet. So I think it's about optimizing software to be able to use a lot of cores that may not be running as fast. And that's where GPU computing is really taking a lot of ground, is because they have a lot of cores. They have many, many more cores than a CPU does. They're just at a much lower clock frequency than a CPU. And that's why you're seeing a lot of traction in GPU compute.
Yeah, and I've seen some technology that has hope for the CPU market. The first thing is they're thinking about stacking, essentially stacking the processors into one processor. So like you can't fit any more onto the die itself, but if you were able to stack the dies on top of each other, you'd essentially have 3-4 processors built into one, and that would help push the core, the thread, and hopefully the frequency speed.
I think so. And then it becomes about interconnectivity and the bandwidth and how fast the different processors can talk to each other. Because you could separate every function of a computer out into its own dedicated chip. Much like with a network processor, sound processor, video processor. It really comes down to how fast these can connect and talk to each other. Yeah. Because being on the die, that's the fastest access you have to the heartbeat of the computer. So it's a which way do we want to go sort of thing, and how fast do we want to make the interconnects. That's going to allow you to have lots and lots of different cores, as long as they can talk quickly with each other without clogging up the bandwidth and oversaturating the memory.
Yeah, and of course the only problem is that when you start to stack them and combine them, you double, triple the cost of a CPU, which is already one of your most important, well, of course, one of your most important, but one of the most expensive components to a computer. You really don't want to be tripling that, every year. So
in my experience, whenever I try to upgrade my computer on a 2 to 3 year basis, I usually spend about $300 some odd on the CPU, and now with the 9900K, I think it was more like 400 this time around, and I don't like that trajectory very much.
No, I don't either. I'm actually about 2-3 years out myself from CPU. I think I have like a i7 7700K. I need to, well, probably this iteration, whatever. Hopefully they get it down to the 10 nanometer size, and it's because I really, for some reason in my head, I do not want to upgrade to the i9 9900K.
Hmm.
I'm hoping for the generation after, so I'm being greedy.
Yeah, no, that's a valid sort of thinking. I'm very happy with a 9900K. A friend of mine moved up from Broadwell to 9900 as well, and we do very similar work. And
Hmm.
he has noticed a huge improvement in his workflow. And he opted for a higher frequency,
Right.
fewer cores back when he upgraded about 2.5, 3 years ago. So 9900's been up pretty good, although I'm not very satisfied with the motherboard that I'm on. I'm
Hmm.
a little disappointed with the Asus platform, the number of USB slots and
PCIe
SATA
lanes. Yeah.
that it's
Oh,
got
okay.
on there, and I expect a little bit more. But as far as the actual CPU, it's gangbusters. It's actually a really good CPU.
Oh well, hey, that's comforting if I get too impatient. But I will say I have an Asus motherboard too. The like I've been considering getting a dedicated sound card, which I haven't
Mhm.
even thought about since like 2000. Because the one that the Asus came with, I didn't really realize it until a couple months later, was busted. So like
Oh wow.
I need to offload the audio to a dedicated device. But but like everywhere I read, it's like, oh, it's necessary. It's not necessary. I'm completely lost when it comes to sound. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean most onboard audio is pretty good already.
yeah,
What you're battling is some signal noise that the board generates that could interfere with that. But
yeah.
if you have a good audio chip, you should have a pretty good experience. And I have I have an external USB for recording and things like that.
Hmm.
But for games and stuff like that, I just connect everything to my wireless headset, and everything's fine. No, no problem. But I think this board has a more of a premium audio than others. So
Yeah.
if you have a run-in-the-mill, if you have a like mid to low end motherboard, you definitely have sort of run-in-the-mill audio, and I think that's definitely a good idea to go to a audio card like a Sound Blaster.
Good idea.
Yeah, if they're still around, I haven't thought about audio in forever.
Yeah, I know. It's something that I definitely have to dig into more as well.
Mhm.
It's not low or medium, or it was high end 2 or 3 years ago, but it's just busted, unfortunately. So I've been dealing with it, but either way, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about AMD and the possibility of them dropping the Threadripper. Of course, as you
Mhm.
said before, this is rumor, speculation, conjecture, uh,
Total speculation.
but still,
I don't think they will. I think they really shook up the market with Threadripper and with Ryzen in general. It's a really good chip, and it lit a fire under Intel's butt to kind of keep moving. So I think it would be a mistake for AMD not to follow through and try to keep going after that workstation market with things like the Threadripper.
and I'm sure that you heard AMD recently scored a contract with Cray. And by the way, Cray, for those of you who kind of care
Mhm.
about that market, was recently purchased by HP Enterprise. So Cray just got a lot more funding. But yeah, Cray partnered with AMD to make the first exabyte supercomputer. It's going to be an AMD, kind of deal there. And then, of course, the first 1.5 exabyte is already under construction with Intel and Nvidia. But yeah, I mean, there obviously is demand for these supercomputers that can do incredible things. It's just a matter of I don't know. Instead of getting like these chips have always been, if price is no issue, this is the best you'll
Mhm.
get. Uh, I guess even if you're building a supercomputer, is price an issue when you're paying $1,700 versus maybe a third of that for really good chips? $500 a chip
Right.
from AMD, you'll still get a Threadripper. It's just you won't get the highest one. Um, I'm
Right.
curious.
And I think cost is an issue for anybody that's building anything anywhere. So I think people want to be efficient. I think this is where AMD has really built a solid foundation for being known for their really good value for what they offer, especially in the graphics card market.
Yeah, and maybe this has to do, and this is something that Nvidia had to deal with. I'm sure that AMD is also reeling with it as well. The unfortunate, not stellar adoption of virtual reality devices, and that was going to be one of the big, kind of boons to the processor and graphics card market. But for the processors, hey, if you're playing in virtual reality, you're going to have some really beefy hardware, and it just didn't catch on.
You do. You definitely do. You're driving a lot in real time, and having a CPU GPU combination and memory that can handle it is pretty important, especially if you're developing and doing more high-end stuff in VR. Your equipment is super important.
Right. So okay. So there's that article. I'm looking forward to see what AMD is going to roll out here, probably towards the end of the year. This is probably just for like investors and things like that, and they'll make more announcements as they are wont to do. But let's see. Real quick. I'm sorry. ARM is not the same as AMD, is it? ARM is something completely different.
ARM is something completely different. Yeah, that's generally more for mobile compute processors.
Yeah. Okay, so I read ARM.
It's a different architecture entirely.
Yeah.
AMD and Intel share the 286 sort of old school PC architecture, and ARM is a whole different architecture.
Yeah. I read ARM, and in my brain it translated it to AMD.
To AMD, yeah.
Because I
do
found
that
this.
too.
Yeah, this different article about ARM having to cut ties with Huawei, and everything that's happening with Huawei. We're keeping an eye on that. Man, what a headache that company is going through. I'm not sure if you kept up with what's happening over there, but yeah, all American companies are not allowed to deal with Huawei. So think of every ARM chip developer, every Intel, every AMD. No one is allowed to sell anything to Huawei. Kind of hard place to be.
They're pretty big part of the handset market, so it's a little sketchy right now.
Yeah, no, it's and really, if nothing else, it shows how much tech influence America can exert when it needs to.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a bit of a kerfuffle about server chips having execution codes for spying. Coming out of Supermicro, which is very well known for their server and workstation boards.
Yeah,
there's all sorts of hullabaloo about some of their chips that being kind of infiltrated by some forces outside of the commercial sphere. So it's bizarre.
We certainly covered that one, and of course, Micro wanted to assure everyone that they were of the utmost trustworthiness and to keep buying from them, so they denied it vehemently. Honestly, personally, and this is just whatever, but almost all of our technology is produced in China, and the supply chains over there in Southeast Asia and places like that.
So much, yeah.
I would love to see more manufacturing come back to America to to make these things, but to kind of single out any one company and say that they're infiltrated by by China or Taiwan, Thailand, whatever. Hey, every stick of RAM, every processor, every graphics card, all of them at some point their components flow through the same channels. It's
yeah, absolutely.
It's a huge thing.
Absolutely. And that's why things are as cheap as they are. Otherwise, that $400 CPU that I bought would be more like $600 or $700.
I believe it. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And of course, and that's ignoring the cost of having to bring it back to the U.S. or to anywhere else in the world. Setting up those supply chains is huge business. So, okay, there's that. Dariush, we have like 1 minute before we're going to go to break. Time is flying by. Let's go ahead. Oh, and hey, Huawei. Actually, there's a story you put it here in the second one from Giz China. And a flexible panel hit a let's see. So BOE's flexible OLED panels hit 11% shipment. Many thanks to Huawei. Speak of the devil. So, let's talk about flexible panels here just for a minute, and then we're gonna go to break. I'll interrupt you, but what caught your attention about this story?
I think this could be a game changer. You could shape your displays to almost any sort of form factor. So basically, you could have a screen on your sleeve, or on your chest, or on your back. I mean, think about having a name tag that could be, anything. So this is a pretty great technology, and it could be very, very interesting what sorts of things you can make with fabric
Mhm.
that has a screen on it.
I'm trying to find, and here it is. I'm going to, and music playing in the background. So let me see. I'm going to share my screen with you just a second. So when we come back, we'll talk more about this. But hey, maybe we could see something like this concept for the Apple Watch. Something like that. So everyone, we'll be right back. More Derakhshani, and of course, more computer technology news, graphics, everything. Everyone, hey, we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. And everyone, thank you so much for tuning into the Computer America Show. Everyone, hopefully you're doing well. And if you missed any part of our show so far, feel free to just 1 second. And let's see, I got this. I'm sorry, folks. And there we go. All right, so everyone, if you missed any part of today's show, you can, of course, check out wherever podcasts are heard. You can find the Computer America Show. And, hey, makes it very, very simple. So definitely check that out. All right, everyone, so we continue on, Derakhshani. And Dariush, unfortunately, your video is missing. I'm not sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. Yeah, we can see you again. So everyone, Derakhshani continues on with us. And so with that being said, we were just about to get into BOEs, which I'm sure is, kind of an OEM. Essentially, they're the company that supplies the technology to other companies to build into products. Looks like they are making more flexible smart screens. As the article pointed out, Samsung made 81% of them, and it looks like this company is gaining ground. Flexible screens, it's something that was promised. I'm sure that people are familiar with maybe the Samsung wallpaper TV, I think. It's like a kind of like a flexible, stickable TV screen. Flexible screens, and really my question to you is flexibility about quality, or is flexibility about durability?
I think it has to be durable. I mean, if you lose your image clarity, your image quality if it gets too warped or distorted, it's not going to be a very good viewing experience. So I think that's paramount, making sure the integrity of the image is kept. Then comes the flexibility and the durability of it, what you're able to do with it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could just buy a very generic jacket, you could update it with whatever skin you want for it to look like whatever designer that you want. And then, you could just download a Calvin Klein or a Michael Kors or a Versace and just apply it to what you're wearing. So I think it's, as far as fashion goes, it's definitely going to be a game changer. But I think we're a little bit away from being at a fabric level of these flexible, but I think this is a tremendous step in those directions. And I know LG had put out a TV that rolls, that sort of rolls itself up and down like a projection screen. I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that one certainly stole the show at CES. I think they unveiled that, and it would supposedly kind of roll up from the foot of your bed, and it would kind of roll away when you didn't want it. I mean, rollable technology is something that is certainly coming. It's just a matter of how much extra are people willing to pay for it. The form factor certainly matters, especially as TV screens start to get, kind of, as this article points out here, 65, 75 inch. We've even seen up to 95. I think Samsung, again, they're the one who makes kind of like the weird offbeat TVs. They have like one called like the Wall or something like that, where it can get up to like 120 inches. When you have like a 120 inch TV, you might want to put that thing away sometimes. Of course, it's huge and you want to show it off to, to everyone, but you might want to put it away sometimes.
Yeah, entirely possible. If you have a 120-inch TV, you probably have a room dedicated for theater viewing. So it's hit or miss. I think the sweet spot for that sort of thing is, the 50, 60-inch TV at best that you kind of want to have in the bedroom. Like, I don't want to have a TV in the bedroom. I just don't. But if there's a little cabinet where this thing can roll out and you can watch a little something before you go to bed, roll it back down, I think that's where this technology is going to be sweet.
And of course, wearables, having this thing flex around the arm, like I kind of mentioned with this image here this was, of course, someone just kind of took an Apple Watch and just used Photoshop to kind of bend it, as if it would clasp around a wrist. But, being able to extend the watch face to all the way around your wrist, or, just kind of having something that would fold out, kind of like, although I would say the phones, are you attracted to the phones that, kind of fold open like a book and become like a little mini tablet as opposed to a phone that they've been showing off?
Me, not so much. I'm not so much into that. But I haven't had one, so I don't know. But I'm not immediately attracted to the idea.
Yeah, it's really just about screen size. How do you maximize screen size? It seems like we've gone away from miniaturizing technology to how do we make the most out of what we have. So
yeah, and to me at that point, I would probably just want a micro notebook, a little tiny laptop instead at that point. But I'm old school. I like a keyboard. I like to be able to type on physical keys.
It's interesting. I don't think tablets are going away. I don't think they're a dead market, but I feel like we're starting to, I guess, kind of phones are starting to bite into the tablet market, and the tablet market is starting to kind of give a little ground to mini laptops and netbooks and things like tablets always had a special space because I think of the form factor, but now other things are starting to adopt the same form factor.
Yeah, I think with the larger phones, like I have the iPhone Max. Is that what it's called? The Max S.
iPhone 10. Yeah.
I like it. It's nice and big. I can read stuff on it. I can get my news on it. I can watch a video on it pretty nicely. My wife and son both have large iPhones as well. We used to have an iPad, but nobody really uses it. And I have a Surface that I use for some drawing and some things like that especially when I'm traveling or when I'm on set. It's really good for that sort of thing. But when I need to sit down and work, I work at my desk or I work on a laptop. I type a lot and it's awkward typing. That's what I like about the Surface. It's a great tablet, but it's got this fantastic keyboard built into it. So that's sort of where it's at. If phones were still small, if we were still, with the little flip phones and stuff like that, yeah, absolutely, tablets. But I think in this day and age, they're less and less useful. Aside from, art making and drawing and things like that, don't get me wrong, that's super useful there. But for everyday sort of normal everyday compute, I don't know if tablets are really necessary as much as a nice beefy phone would be.
Yeah, and of course you say that, and you mentioned Tesla. And by the way, I saw my first Tesla driving around here where we have our studio, and man, it stands out, but at the same time, it's very very subtle. Like if you don't know what you're looking for, your eyes can kind of
You're gonna miss it. Yeah. Was it a Model S or a Model 3 or
I
X?
think it was a Model X.
Like it's the bigger one, the
Yeah,
SUV size one.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I want one. I want one so bad, but
Oh
uh,
my gosh,
I
they are
yeah. I will
amazing
get one.
cars.
It will be mine. But until then, I will say that I'm trying to think of who displayed it. It was either like Audi or Mercedes or something like that. But anyways, uh, you mentioned Tesla. That thing is like half tablet, like right there in the center of the console. That thing is like half
Yeah,
an
it
entertainment
is.
system.
It's a 10 some inch tablet, and everything, at least in the Model 3 that I have,
Hmm.
is controlled through it. I think there are more buttons and gauges and stuff like that in the S and the X,
Yeah.
but in the 3, everything runs off of that central tablet.
Yeah, so hey, it's the tablet isn't dead. It's just I guess everything needs a screen, and
Yeah,
I think the idea of standardizing 10-inch, 7-inch, like we did in the past. Now it's just hey, here's our design, and it's not cookie cutter. So very very
yeah,
interesting.
exactly. Yeah, no, I think it's groundbreaking.
Yep,
It's a fantastic vehicle. I highly recommend. And
perfect.
with the standard range Model 3s, that's about the same cost as a nicely equipped gas car. And
Yeah,
honestly, after 6 years, the total cost of ownership of the Model 3 is about the same as a Honda Accord, believe it or not.
I've bought into Tesla's whole thing so hard. Like I want a Tesla Powerwall, and I want the
Mhm.
solar shingles that they showed
Yep.
off,
Oh,
the
I'd
solar
love the
city.
solar shingles. That would be amazing.
I know, and then of course, and then I want right there a Tesla Model S parked right there,
Yeah.
latest, ready to go. I want
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah.
Tesla
If
package.
you like driving like I do, the Model 3 is a better sort of driving car. The
I
Model S is more of like a luxury sedan sort
Yeah,
of feel. And I haven't driven or rid in an X, so I'm not sure about how that goes. But yeah, for driving enthusiasts, dude, the Model 3 is off the chain, as they say.
I was already sold before we even talked about this. So trust me, I
Go
want to
get
know
one.
more.
Go get one
Uh,
after the show.
Yeah, sure. Just run out there and just probably I'll pull Grand Theft Auto, find it, and we'll do our thing.
There you
So
go.
so with that being said, let's go ahead and move on into our next topic. And Dell confirms Nvidia Quadro RTX mobile GPUs. Uh, Hey, this kind of ties into well, we mentioned ARM, but the idea that Nvidia is getting looks like Nvidia Quadro RTX mobile. Uh,
Hmm.
we talk about Nvidia and we talk about the Titans. We talk about all the different high end the 28. I'm sorry, it's escaping me. The 2080. There we go. The 2080 Ti and the 2080. But we don't talk about their kind of lower end, but of course made for laptops and notebooks and things like that. We don't really talk about those. But hey, this is mobile workstation positioning. You mentioned workstations a couple times. Talk about the appeal of a mobile workstation.
Um, Having enough power with error checking memory and the bandwidth, the software, the application certification, driver base that is much more means tested than regular drivers. All of those things are really important in the workstation space. And sometimes you just got to go mobile. You got to get up and go around and go somewhere or be on set or be on a location or move your office around. So, the lines between a regular computer and a workstation are pretty blurred.
Hmm.
So it's hard to define. I actually just got a survey from John Petty Research to answer a few questions about what does define a workstation. So to me, having the graphics card, the Quadro or the Radeon Pro branding definitely helps because the certification with the applications and the driver base, but also the error checking and not everything's about pushing as much frequency out of it as possible as it is about stability and being able to work for hours and hours without having to reboot because something's just not looking right or being weird.
Right. Yeah, no, of course, if you're purchasing a workstation, you're doing it for work. This will be a business expense, and I mean, looking through the specs here, they're crazy good. And of course, at the same time, like I'm looking at this in the Nvidia Quadro RTX desktop GPU specs, looking for the differences between the 6000 and the 8000 Quadro. Man, these two seem like identical cards, except the base clock rate is a bit slower on the more expensive one, and it comes with like twice the memory as the other one. Like,
That's the thing because the thing that's the slowest on these is loading texture.
mhm.
So getting textures loaded onto the card is probably the slowest part of GPU processing or GPU rendering. So having that much more memory just allows you to load more in one shot and have it just stay resident in memory as opposed to swapping one texture out for another one when that frame calls for it.
I gotcha. And it says here, if NVIDIA continues its past practice, Quadro RTX mobile models should resemble their desktop counterparts in most aspects.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed. Yeah, I've been trying to. I've worked with Nvidia. They're a great group of folks over there. I've worked with them on benchmarking their cards in the past at a desktop level. Worked with them on mobile workstations as well. So I'm really keen on getting my hands on the RTX line of cards so I can see what the desktops can do
Hmm.
before I can get into the mobiles, because that's really an important gauge for a professional is can I really take what I'm doing at my desk and be able to take it on the road and get a reasonable fraction of
Yeah.
the reliability and of the speed, because packing this kind of power into something that's running off a battery and is inside a little magnesium alloy case, and the cooling implications and how loud the fans get and how much you have to throttle performance so the thing doesn't melt and catch your pants on fire if you're have it on your lap. These things are incredibly difficult and important sort of design decisions to make for the developers of this hardware. So I really want to see what the desktop is,
Yeah.
what the expectation is of the RTX Quadros in desktop to really be able to see if the mobile is following suit. Because in with the last generation of Quadro versus desktop versus mobile, it's been pretty good. I've had a chance to get on the Quadro 3000 mobile on an MSI, and it posted pretty respectable numbers compared to the 5000 even that
Yep.
I had in my desktop. So it remains to be seen what they can do with RTX mobile, but I'm very hopeful for it.
I think what you said there was, kind of something that a lot of people need to realize is that desktop versus mobile or laptop or anything like that, desktop's going to win. It's just there's more room, there's more air, there's more
There's
cooling,
more
there's
power. Yeah, absolutely. It is going to win. And it's not about replacing, I mean, unless you're really cramped for space and you do a lot of work on the road, desktop is definitely the better way to go. Just upgradability, efficiency, cost basis, all of those things are better.
what,
Mobile
yeah. Yeah.
GPU as well as CPU. My CPU and my desktop will definitely be able to render a lot faster and a lot more frames than a laptop will. But there's still a lot of use case where somebody needs to get
One
on the road and do these things from one place to another. So it's important that you get at least
yeah.
a reasonable amount of what you can get from the desktop. But I agree with you. It's I don't think it's ever going to be a contest, a one-to-one relationship.
One use case I have seen that I like, I don't personally use it, but for people out there who maybe travel a lot, and really just even if it's between your home office to an office or between 2 and 3 locations, having everything set up as like kind of a docking station where you could just plug in a couple USBs and you would have everything full blown, and then unplug the computer and put it into another docking station. Just being able to transition, like it's not just a facsimile of a computer, like it's not one set up the same way.
It's your actual computer. Yeah, absolutely.
It's having that use case is really valuable to a lot of people who want to take their work with them.
And this is where eGPUs are really super important, being able to connect in. And with the bandwidths that we're getting through Thunderbolt 3, USB-C, that's important because you can throw a Titan X or a Titan V or a Quadro 8000, hopefully, into one of these eGPUs and have it sitting on your desk and saddle up with your little notebook, but then get all of that GPU compute power. I think when they get CPUs, I think that's when what you're talking about will be much, much more impressive. And I think that's something for the industry to explore and get into.
At that point, though, you've compartmentalized everything, and maybe we'll run back into like that Netflix thing. It's like, man, we have Netflix, Hulu, HBO. It's like if only someone were to package them all into one service and just deliver it through one cord, and then we're back to cable. I feel like at that point you've split the computer into every part. And at that point, you just take your hard drive with you and plug your hard drive in, and you're full blown good to go.
Or fingerprint scan, and then everything you've got is securely there on the cloud. You can load whatever, and your apps can. It's sort of going back to where computers came from to begin with, where you've got a mainframe, and then everybody works off of the mainframe using a dumb terminal. And there's a lot of use case for that in graphics. It's called VCA, Visual Computing Appliance, where it's the same thing. You've got a rack-mounted machine that has like 4, 5, 6 high-end GPUs in it, and then the terminal that you're sitting in, you've got 20 artists using 5 video cards. Because they're not all going to hit it all at the same time in some way. So it's a much more efficient way of doing it and centralizing your power. So I think we're heading with cloud-based computing to that sort of thing again, where what's on your desk is more of a dumbed-down sort of receptacle for the giant computer at the Amazon or the Google that's doing a lot of the actual processing for you. Once people get over the privacy, which is a really big issue, actually.
So there's and this is something that's been happening over the past week or two. Sony and Microsoft. Well, Sony said that they were going to tap Microsoft. Yes, PS4 is going to be using the company behind the Xbox to partner to bring cloud computing and cloud gaming, I should say. And then on top of that, we have the service from Google. They have a new cloud gaming platform that they announced that they are launching later this year. Cloud gaming, like the ability to, and really this came, I think, from the idea with consoles, and like you were just saying, consoles will never be able to compete with full-blown computers in terms of hardware. But if they can be simple receptacles, if you can hook up your console to a TV, have your controller, and let Microsoft, Amazon, one of these other companies do the heavy lifting on their hardware, and you would get perfect full screen 4K Ultra HD graphics on any simple device. That is something that they're seriously hoping to bring out within the next 2 or 3 years.
No, I think that's fantastic. You can stream an Xbox game to your PC. So the idea, the technology, the concept is there. It's just a matter of, do you have the bandwidth? And will Azure or Amazon Web Services, will these cloud-based services have the bandwidth and the speed to be able to deliver that? Because in the end, they do all the computation. All they have to handle is the keyboard mouse input coming from you and then deliver the final frames to you.
Exactly.
raises a lot of bandwidth and privacy issues. But it does take the onus of the actual processing away. So the next Xbox that you buy might just be a shell, sort of like the Steam client that's out and has been out for a while. But their servers really have to be able to deliver better than what your console can do now. And in the end, I think a lot of places want to do that in a way for the new business model of subscription based, where everybody pitches in, a little bit every month. You're guaranteed that income's coming in, as opposed to hoping someone's going to throw down their Christmas money at the end of the year and put $400 down for a PlayStation Pro.
It seems to be much easier to ask people to put up $15 a month than it is to make them pay $100 a year. It's
because you buy a console for $400 and you're going to have it for 3, 4, 5 years. But if you're paying, $15 a month basically translates to almost $200 a year.
Yeah.
And after 3 years, you're into it for about $600, which is 50% more than if you just bought the thing for $400. So in a way, it's a little bit of a trap in that you're going to end up paying more. Like, for example, I've got cable internet, and I was paying what was it, like $6-7 a month for their cable modem until it just dawned on me, man, I could just buy one because over the years I could have bought 3 of them. For how much I sent AT&T Spectrum or whoever it is that owns my cable internet at this point.
I'm not going to say who our internet provider is because we actually take we actually pick on them quite a bit here. But I'll say that I had to the one that we use. They charged me every month for hardware for the modem and of course for the router. But we had our own router, because we love our routers. But we had we still have to pay that, even though I bought my own modem. We still have to pay their rental fee. That's non-negotiable. I still have to pay that. So, and the funny thing is, we actually upgraded to the highest bandwidth, or the highest the internet speeds that we could get. The modem that they gave us is incompatible with the speed that they were giving us, and we were actually getting really bad internet because their modem.
Of that,
And so we went out and trust me, everyone, modems, they're cheap. They're like 60. I think I bought a top one for like $60. It was great.
Absolutely, you can get a good one for $60. Absolutely.
So
and running a technology company and a service provider like this, it's hard. I get it. I definitely get it. But I just went through all sorts of hell with DirecTV because they've been bought out by AT&T, and the service and the machine, everything just seems like it's dipping down. And I want to say these companies have a hard time because it is very difficult, the logistics and all that kind of stuff, and making this kind of stuff work. But having said that, yeah, it's a total ripoff in a lot of ways because one hand doesn't know what the other hand's doing. And whoever sent you that modem had probably no idea, that it wouldn't work.
They sent out 3 different teams of technicians, everything from junior to senior to the manager of the whole thing, and they even scratched their head and they said, well, question mark. And of course a little bit of Googling later, it turns out that no hardware that they could provide me that they owned would have fixed my problem. I had to go out and do this myself
to get your own. And it's just stupid that they're still charging you for that, because you can make an argument that you shouldn't have to pay that. I had 2 techs show up at my house within 5 minutes of each other for the same issue, and they had no idea that the other tech was showing up.
Yeah,
these things definitely happen. Like I said, I want to cut these companies slack, but the kind of money that they're getting, it's crazy.
I don't, because these companies, they make so many acquisitions, and you mentioned Spectrum, which is owned by Charter now, which provides internet access and television, places like that, or things like that, to I think about 100 and 40 million, whatever their current reach was. Like,
Right.
they get so big, and like nothing punishes them because they're so big and
Right.
they provide so much. Like, I feel like smaller, more homegrown company, or at least kind of community focused companies would do would do better than one company that provides service to 100 million people. That's just the way it's
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a sense of needing to be scrappy, needing to be responsive, and needing to compete. And when you have the the market cornered, I have a frustration with the software that I've been using forever and write books about and teach about. It's been owned by a larger conglomerate that owns a lot of graphics packages. And I feel like its development has just been stunted. And yesterday I was working, and I think I froze up about 3 or 4 times. It just blinked out and just went away. And it's really frustrating because when you're that big and you don't have the competition nipping at your heels, you're not gonna go that far because it's easier to sit back and be profitable than it is to be a pioneer. And it goes to monopoly laws and things like that. So I think we're at a stage where a lot of these companies are just too big.
Yeah, and hey, that's and this is a whole thing into economics that unfortunately we just don't have time for. We're actually we're actually running over a little bit here. And if you're listening to this, that means you're listening to us on the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in to the show. And Dariush, and I will say I completely agree with you. We have a lot of topics that we did not get to cover on the show today. Maybe we can carry
It's
those
always
over
next
to
time.
next time, exactly. And yeah, with that being said, if people want to find out more, follow you on social media, that kind of thing, best place to go.
Twitter.
Twitter.
Look me up on Twitter or Facebook.
All right, perfect. And hey, we'll include links to that. So Dariush, until next
Super.
time, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a great show. And
My
hey,
pleasure.
we'll catch you then.
Take care. Thank
All right,
you.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. And everyone, there you go. So obviously, if you want to catch anything else on the show here, hey, check out Computer America. Again, tomorrow we'll have an interview with the University of East Anglia. Check that out. It's a very interesting interview where we talked all about facial recognition, the legality of it. Of course, he's over in the UK, we're in the US, but trust me, there is plenty of overlap in a very interesting conversation. Until next time, everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much for tuning into the show, and hopefully you had fun because we certainly did as well. Catch you here next time, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. Have a great one. Bye-bye.